I move on. Let's do roll call.
Aleppo,
Moving.
Avalon, Bell Acres,
Here.
Bellevue,
Here.
Ben Avon,
Here.
Edgeworth, Hemsworth, Glen Osborne,
Here.
Glenfield, Hayesville,
Here.
Killbuck, Leeds,
Here.
Leedsdale, Swickley.
Here.
Swickley Heights. That's a quorum.
Thank you. Any guests or commenting? Okay. Moving on to approval of the February 15th meeting minutes. I'll take a motion to approve. Second. It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the February 15th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, it's passed. Second, and I need a motion to approve Patrick, why don't you go over the financial reports and the unpaid bills and the payroll summary?
Yeah, so real quick, the statement of financial position, I wanted to give you guys the most accurate portrayal because we had our dues and some payments from the county come through. So usually I always do it at the end of the month, but in this case, it's going to be from March 8th. So as you can see, for the first time, I did some, research, and to my knowledge, this is the first time both our general fund and our capital fund are over $100,000. So very happy to see that. I think we're in great financial shape. The budget, also everything, just normal, nothing out of the ordinary in that front. But yeah, so really excited to see some of those outstanding payments that we've talked about for quite some time to come through. And everyone was really prompt in paying their dues this year. So thank you for that. But all in all, I think it's a good spot to be in.
It is a good spot. I'll take a motion to approve the financial reports and the unpaid bills and the payroll summary.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we're quickly down to the president's report.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the discussion last month about the county that's been resolved, my understanding is.
Yes.
Write any letter or?
We did have a letter written, but the payment came through before we sent it, so we didn't ultimately send it. I did include it in the packet just because it was a motion. So if you guys are interested in seeing what we would have said to the county, it's there. So, but yeah, we got that payment through. Still a couple things we're looking for, but as far as our financial aspect of it, the QB cog, we're not waiting anything. Some of our contractors are, but according to what I've been told, we should be getting those payments soon. And our contract for our 48 CD48 will be coming through soon too. So all looks to be in good shape.
On to the president's report. And what I wanted to talk about in the president's report really involves recycling. We've done a wonderful job with our glass recycling, so wonderful that now Waste Management is willing to recycle our glass. But I think there's more that can be done to be recycled. I do know that the city of Pittsburgh is banning plastics. And that's a huge move by a big city. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Certainly they can't reinforce it, but I do know, having been a diver in the waters, plastic is a huge problem, even in our streams. And so I'm asking those of you that are here, even the COG, is this something we should look into, or municipalities interested in taking this step? It's a huge step, I think. But I would be interested in any comment anybody else has, or other ways that we can promote recycling and sustainability, because in this day and age, I think that is incredibly important. A little late, but important. So I'll take.
Hi. Bell Acres over the
summer months, establish an environmental advisory council for our community, which I think is comprised of 5 members that meet regularly. And I know that one of the ladies that are on it, Darcy Saracho, is one of the founders of the Big Soikley Creek Watershed program. So maybe reaching out to other communities that have programs like this, they could help as they're already active in the waterways and cleaning up environmental problems that could talk about recycling. And I know that they do a big event every year and just clean out the Big Soikley Creek in our area and pull tons of things out, not just plastic, tires and clothes and all
Yeah.
kinds of things.
I thank you for bringing that up. In another that, I am president of the Little Swiftly Creek Watershed Association. And we don't do a program that's like that. And Big Swiftly Creek Association certainly has come a long way. I'm very familiar with what they're doing and what they have done. And it's impressive, the board members that they do have. I do know that I did attend a Pennsylvania Game and Fish Commission watershed remotely forum. And one of the big things, and I know Little Swiftly Creek has done we've done water quality studies. And one of the biggest things that we find is salt, the chemical that everybody puts on our roadways. And that is huge in the waterways, to a point where it was said at the meeting by the Fish and Game Commission that some streams are turning into saltwater streams. That the environment has changed that much, and that the salt we put on the road does impact our streams greatly. The response by PennDOT is, well, if people would stay home during snowstorms, we wouldn't have to put so much saline or salt on our roadways that do run off into our stream.
That's a non-answer. I mean,
Yes, it certainly is.
there are other options I was reading
There's
about. So
Mhm.
this is-
I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you, but that's the state's position. The other thing that we found in our streams was, fecal matter, coming from sewer systems that were broken, or from package plants, or from individual septics. We also had runoff, silt come down into our stream just this winter by somebody who decided just to plow straight up through the woods. And we had a great deal of runoff into the stream. So protecting our waterways is constant. And it's amazing to me, the changes. I have a neighbor who is a world-renowned fly fisherman, and he's always fished Big Swiftly Creek and Little Swiftly Creek. And he states, since he started over 50 years ago, that not only have the fish changed in the streams, but the surrounding trees, the plants, all affect and have changed along with the water quality in our streams. So yes, I'm glad you're doing that, because it's very, very important. Any other comments? I'm sorry it took so long.
I have a comment. I know I had mentioned, I think to Patrick and Barbara, that I was gonna meet with this guy, Dan from Penn Environment. Our meeting fell through, but we can definitely reschedule it. And he was reaching out to elected officials to try to get people to attend a hearing that was happening, I guess it was last month, about plastics. And so that hearing has already passed, but he was really eager to speak with me. And I think if we wanted to, he would love it if he could just come to a COG meeting and speak to all of us at once about what municipalities can do about plastics. He is, I don't know, I think I haven't spoken with him about his ideas, but I think he has ideas for what we could do in to piggyback, and we talked about this at our last meeting, to piggyback off what the city's doing with banning plastic bags. So
You
I'd
know,
be happy.
I would like to know if a smaller municipality could regulate that. I know you say, Barbara, the city of Pittsburgh doing it, but when they first passed recycling, it was totally voluntary for communities under 5,000. I think it still is. We don't have to do it. We want to do it, and I'm all in favor of recycling. But I just wonder if do we have the legislative authority to ban plastic bags?
If we don't, we can have a position on this, right? I feel like we're so behind.
Mhm.
My examples are New Jersey, Vermont. You can't go to a store and not bring your bags.
Yeah, but that's done by the state of Vermont or the state of New Hampshire in the whole state, Connecticut.
I get it. So what
I think that's what would have to be in Pennsylvania. It's got to be statewide or some county-wide or something. I don't know, but I don't know if we have the legislative authority to do something like, and I'd like the answer to that.
The point I was trying to make is maybe we don't have the authority right now, but we can still state our position. As a cog, we can say this is unacceptable for our region. This is how we believe in this. And then maybe it's a small gesture, but at least it puts our position clear to legislator and see what can be done. So to me, the thing that's the most worrisome in the last few years, months, is maybe what's happening to our neighbors in Beaver County. I would like to see more air quality monitoring happening and see if are they meeting their regulation. I know other parts of Pittsburgh are really bad, and then you get alerts by the county. So having the county install something on our end, say we have big industrial plants developing, and maybe we need to start monitoring more what's happening on that front, and alert when
Yeah,
our population when.
No, we
bad
had,
things
didn't we
happen.
have Communities First came a few months ago, and Gail Murray offered, didn't she offer
Yeah.
monitoring systems to people in the Cog area? Now, that was before the Shell cracker plant opened. So maybe there would be more interest in that. I don't know.
I love that. I mean, to me, that's, I was aware of one incident already.
Yeah.
This,
From the Shell plant?
yeah.
yeah. And I do think I do have a monitor at my house,
Yes. I
and
remember
there's
you
quite
said
a few up and down the valley. And you can go on, it's put forth nothing by Communities First, and they're working with Carnegie Mellon, if I'm correct.
That's what I
I think
recall.
it's called Purple Air.
Okay,
That they are monitoring it. They're one of the activist groups that when you hear the cracker plant, oh, it had a burst just yesterday. And, so you could see it. I mean, I'm on it all the time, but you can see it and you can notice it.
okay.
And those are
On your
small.
monitor, you noticed it.
Well, I log into it and you can see where the air goes. You can see even where the pollution goes over Oakmont or the direction of the winds. It's very, very well done.
But there's been a lot of violations, I think, from what I can read, ever since they opened it up in August or whenever they opened up in the fall. They've put out so many tons. They're over already, and I don't know. I don't think the equipment works properly, and it's always flaring up, and it's a mess.
So, yeah, to me, this is where our advocacy could be.
So you think air quality and
Oh, air quality
plastic?
is huge.
Yeah, so what I can do is work with Julie and then get maybe a presentation from, I think his name's Dan Brown.
Yeah.
To speak on the single-use plastic issues, to see what they did with the city of Pittsburgh, and see if there's any interest in maybe having some sort of joint statement with all of our members. And obviously the more long-term goal is to pursue sustainability and have maybe a cleanup day with one of our streams, and still keep an eye on all the information with the air quality. So definitely a lot there, but I think it's all worthwhile and something that we can definitely pursue over, the next months and years.
I have one more question. Was it, who was it from Bell Acres, Carmi?
Carmi,
Carmi, do you think that somebody from your EAC would be willing to speak with the COG to explain to us what the EAC is and what they talk about and how they operate?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know.
There's 5 members.
Yeah.
Finn Johnson was just appointed to the planning commission, so he's on both now. And Darcy, like I said, is on the Big Swickley Creek watershed, as well as the EAC. There's Julie, I believe King is her last name, and I don't recall the other 2 members. But if you send me an email, I'll forward it to our borough manager to get something set up.
Yeah, I think under the municipalities planning code, every municipality has the option of appointing an environmental advisory committee, and it gives their duties. And you have to, if you have one, every development you have, that's got to go to them for advisory comments on any commercial development or anything, any type of project.
Yes, we just did our comprehensive plan update, not this past year, but the year prior. And one of the recommendations was to form the EAC for our community. I think one of the other things that allows you to do is charge fees instead of green space for developments. So that was a big concern, as there's not a lot of developable property in Bell Acres. But there are rules from the state legislature that they follow.
Great.
Patrick, it would be
Thank
nice
you.
if I like your idea very much, if they would be willing to talk to us about forming the committee and the requirements.
Yeah, Carmi, I'll be in touch, and we'll see maybe if we can have a representative from your committee speak in a future meeting.
Patrick, another idea
Okay.
would be to find somebody to talk at a future meeting about the air monitoring and an update on that. If you had somebody in that purple group or Communities First or somebody, there's about 4 or 5 monitoring groups, I think, from what I read. There's a lot of them. I don't know if they would be willing to update us on what's going on.
No, just the person. I think Gail Mary would be
Yes,
ecstatic to
it
come
comes
and
to
speak on that
mind.
again, so.
Comes to mind. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll move on to the Route 65 update.
Julie, did you want to update the group on what we spoke about with Michael Baker and SPC?
Oh, sure. So both of those meetings happened since our last meeting. Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so kind of a lot has happened with the Route 65 update. We met with 2 representatives from SPC. SPC is Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. They are kind of like a go-between agency between, I guess, money that's flowing from the state and the end users, I guess is the way I would say it. And they help to coordinate the money and the projects that the money goes towards. So when we spoke with them about the Route 65 corridor project, they were not very familiar with the study. So part of what they said was that we didn't really need to do a study. We just find places here and there along the corridor that we want to work on, not really understanding that we had already done kind of a comprehensive analysis of the challenges. And then when we said, well, we have that done, then it seemed like they had sort of their understanding kind of swung in the other direction, where they thought we had a master plan,
Right.
where really we just have our toolbox. So they said they did not think we needed a master plan, that we should go for low hanging fruit. And that maybe we should even piggyback off of projects that PennDOT already has planned for the roadway. So something new that we learned was that PennDOT does have a 25-year plan for every state road, which we didn't know. And you can find the information, you can see what the plans are and what they're planning on doing 5-10 years from now. And then as those times draw closer, they get put on what PennDOT calls the tip. And when something's on the tip, it's like an upcoming project that's imminent. So as they're in that planning phase, maybe we can work with somebody from PennDOT Connects to see if there are ideas that we want to implement that will sort of change their project that they already have planned to implement our design ideas. So that's what we came away with from that meeting. But unfortunately, Peter, one of the head designers from Michael Baker, couldn't make that meeting. So we had a follow-up meeting with him the next week. And he was kind of like, I think you guys need a master plan. So he had I think that he and his, what was the other woman that was there? Was she an engineer?
Mhm.
Okay, so they both agreed that to have consistency along the corridor, you need the master plan so that you have consistent design and consistent engineering. So that's what I kind of took out of that meeting. We did talk about Patrick and Barbara and I kind of, I think, mutually agreed that it would be important for us to move forward with an intergovernmental cooperative agreement in order to just state our intention about wanting to focus on this project and to continue to work with the players involved. And we told that to the designer and engineer at Michael Baker. And then we asked Michael if Michael Baker could put together just basically an executive summary of our project and our intentions for the future of the project, something really short that we could use to present to people. And we asked if we could get a quote on that. So that's what we have in our packet later on.
Yep, so that'll be item 11B, so we'll go into that in a little more detail. But yeah, that's a good summary. Like, just basically we had those 2 meetings since our last meeting. And I think we have a little more clarity. So we'll take a deeper dive into the actual quote that we received shortly. But I think that pretty much covers all the Route 65 stuff until that moment.
Unless there's any question.
I mean, all this master plan, we could get grants to get that done, so it
Yes.
doesn't
Yes.
sound too crazy to pursue this.
Well, and one thing that did come up in that meeting with SPC is it was just like one day after a grant had been awarded to some applicant that was in the Manchester Chateau neighborhood, where they got over $1 million for a study to explore reconnecting those neighborhoods, because 65 split up those neighborhoods when it was built. So they just got $1 million for a study to explore that. And that's really sort of the beginning of 65. So the guy that we spoke with from SPC recommended that we get in touch and start talking with people from the city of Pittsburgh to coordinate with them as well, because 65 just comes right out of there.
Yeah, perfect segue. In my report, that's the very first thing. So I won't really delve on that too much more, but as Joey said, that was a $1.4 million grant that the city of Pittsburgh, the Manchester Citizens Corporation got through the American Infrastructure Plan. So I think definitely, we could take a lead from them and just see how they got that grant, and see if we can piggyback in the future as the Route 65 continues on, and that impacts us directly. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, big things ahead for sure. Also related to infrastructure, Route 65, PennDOT and SPC, they have a survey open across the state here. So if anyone's interested in inputting that they would like to see more infrastructure improvements on Route 65 or any other state road that you might have opinions on, it's the perfect time. I have the survey and the executive director's report on our website. And I also have a paper survey that we received a copy of from SPC as well. So those that do have strong opinions, this is the time to, let your voice be heard. So, I encourage anyone that has access to their municipal pages, maybe promote that survey and aspect as well. Really happy to announce 3 municipal intern program projects were awarded to our communities. So Avalon Borough, Edgeworth Borough, and Leedsdale Borough all got municipal interns through Local Government Academies program. Avalon Borough is going to be focusing on blighted properties and code enforcement. Edgeworth is going to be focusing on their sidewalk repair project. And Leedsdale is going to be focusing on a community revitalization and historical society kind of project as well. So really excited for that. This month is really when that gets rolling. And they're going to start to identify maybe some potential interns for this program. So really proud of those towns for applying and getting those, and excited to work with those interns this summer. Also big news. So the Swickley Civic Garden Council, they have an annual May Mart, and at that event, you know, various vendors come and sell and talk about their products and initiatives. Tree Pittsburgh is going to be partnering with the May Mart event to distribute trees. So they have 150 young trees, all sorts of different native species that are available right now for reservation. So I spoke with Tree Pittsburgh, and about 30% of those trees have already been reserved. We have until March 20th for our residents to get their trees, right? And then it's going to be opened up to the general public. So if you have an idea of a certain kind of tree you want, I definitely encourage you to take a look at their website. All that information is also on our website. But really excited. I want to make sure this is sold out, and you know, they come back next year and in the fall and every time they can. So I know this event will be really well received by this community, all of our communities, and it's going to be a really good event. And yeah, that's all I have for the report. Any questions?
Yeah. We'll go on to new business with our guest speaker.
Perfect. So I think Olivia is on the meeting here, but I'm not sure about Sarah. Let's see here.
Hi, guys.
Let me stop share. Hi there.
Hi. Sarah will be on in just a couple minutes if you want to hop into part B of new business.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Consider it looks good to be is about a proposal submitted by Michael Baker.
Yep. So in an effort to build upon the strategic design guide that was referenced by Julie, the QBCOG is engaged with discussion with Michael Baker. And more or less the goal here is to build a consensus with all of our communities. So you can call it an intergovernmental agreement, you can call it a formal document. This is something I want that's going to be a 2 or 3 page document with some of the technical language that Michael Baker can help us with, and more or less summarizes what we're looking to do, both short term and long term, with Route 65 in mind. So this is more or less just another renewal of commitment. It's been a little while since I think everyone has thought about this, and I want to make sure that all 15 communities are on board before we invest any time or money into this. So we have consulted with Michael Baker. They've prepared the summary that's in your packets and on the screen here. Oh, I need to share it so everyone on Zoom can see it too. But there's it's basically piecemeal. So tasks 0 through 2 really focus on the technical language, them helping us concisely summarize the 140-page document into 2 or 3 pages and focus those 2 or 3 pages on what our goals short-term and long-term will be. Tasks 3 and 4 are going to focus on the illustrative aspect of it, which again is optional. We don't need to. And then task 5 is a final presentation. So I did speak with Michael Baker's representatives, and we can approve this piecemeal. We don't have to approve the full thing, which, as you see, is it's not cheap. It's $5,774, but 30% of that is illustrative. And to be honest, I don't know if that's necessary for this agreement. I think the language and the summary is what we're really should be focusing on. So my recommendation is approve tasks 0 through 2, which are the technical writing aspects, and deferring on 3, 4, and 5, which is the presentation and the illustrations. I can present, whatever we put together. I'm not worried about that. So that would come in at a total cost of a little less than $2,000. So
Since this is an agenda item, before we make a motion to accept this, is there any discussion or feelings of taking out tasks? What the graphic layout would be 3 and 4. If we take out 3 and 4, how much money would it be?
if we take out 3, 4, and 5, we're a tick over $2,000. So let me get you the exact amount so we can put it in the record here, so. So it's 595
So it's
plus 1295 plus 280, $2,170 for the actual coordination and development of the language for the agreement.
So it's 33% of the full amount, is that how you're doing?
Yeah.
So something you just mentioned, Patrick, you said all communities have to be in agreement. I don't think so, right? I mean, as long as the majority is supportive of this, I mean, we're still making.
That's up to you guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, not everybody, it's impossible to get
Yeah,
100% consensus. That doesn't mean that we should.
Well- I'll move this way then. I'll take a motion on the proposal by Michael Baker.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now we will be open to discussion. I assume the motion would be for the full amount in all the tasks, all 5 tasks. Is that correct?
Yeah, let's make the motion for the full amount and then we can talk about whether or not we wanna, change the motion.
Okay,
Well, I guess my question is, what does the graphic bring to the discussion that you wouldn't get otherwise? I feel much what Patrick was saying, that the text would be sufficient for this phase of what we're trying to do. But again,
I'm not sure what it would involve, what the graphic would be.
I think that's their specialty, right? They want to illustrate and have lanes and trees and things like that. This is my vision for it. And again, this doesn't need to be what the ultimate vision is a document that we can provide to each one of our 15 communities. And then their boards can say, hey, this is what the Quaker Valley COG is looking to do. Here are some goals. And they can either give it the thumbs up, thumbs down, just sort of taking what we've done with our police groups. Every time we've had a piece of equipment that we've received, we've come up with shared agreements. And then I prepare the agreement, give that agreement to the councils, and then they give it back to me. Just basically formalizing everyone's on board.
my feeling is that they could recycle one graphic from the report. It was fantastic, and then just say illustratively, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean. I don't
So
know
this
what-
is essentially like a comprehensive plan for the COG, right? It's how we're gonna lay out our goals and what, what we're kind of coming together to accomplish. That's, I guess, and sorry, I missed the last couple of meetings regarding this. And Amanda didn't mention it, but that is kind of the,
I think
what-
this is to
what
get
we would be
people on
hoping.
board.
I'm sorry, say that again?
it's not really a comprehensive plan. It's more of taking the plan that they gave us and making it more concise,
Okay,
just with several points. So it's not the detailed plan, all those pages in the book that you would have to go through. But making it more concise and giving a general overall feeling as to what is important and what is not most important. So people understand when we say Route 65, they understand what we're talking about.
I think, just to clarify, if we move forward, if the COG board decides to move forward with an intergovernmental agreement and intention to work on this, not really to spend money on it yet, but intention to work on 65 in as a cohesive group, it will require a resolution from each council. And so because we've been talking about it in the COG, but we haven't been talking about it in our councils,
Mhm.
this document really is for us to take to our council members so that we can give them a general overview of what the COG has been working on and what our hopes are for the future. It's an executive summary for the council members so that we can secure the resolutions from all the councils.
So we
Okay,
have-
thank
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and those of you that have been working closest with them, I mean, obviously it's before all of us, but I mean, you have a strong feeling that they, through this, either choosing to do the first couple of tasks or the whole, everything proposed, that they would be able to accomplish essentially what we're looking for.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
So again, my feeling on this cost is we can say, look, I mean, we don't oppose the adding graphics when we say we have a $2,500 budget and that's squeezing whatever figure we
Yeah.
can from the document and make it good. It's not the 33%, it's more towards 45% version of the proposal and say, this is what we can spend.
So cost not to exceed $2,500 with tasks 0 through 2 being what we're looking for.
Well,
Yeah.
is the cog, just, I'm clear, the cog will pay the, whatever it is, 2,500,
Yep, that would come out of the capital budget, our shared fund for, joint projects. That's my idea.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy to amend the motion to that.
Okay, yes. Is there a second?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Of
Aye.
the.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
good. Thank you, thank you.
All right, looks like we have our guest.
Okay,
So, Olivia, Sarah, feel free to take it away.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? How's it going?
Doing well, doing well.
very good.
Thanks for coming.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as you can tell, I'm in the car because we had many events this evening. So I was hoping to just have a couple minutes of your time. I'm going to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about what I've been working on in the State House, and let you know kind of why I'm running for county executive and what my vision is. And hopefully have some time for questions that are unique to the challenges that you're experiencing in the Quaker Valley area. So I'm Sarah Namarato, currently state rep. I've been serving in the State House since 2018. I represent areas of the city of Pittsburgh, which is where I live, and some of the northern suburbs. So my district's changed quite a bit, but I used to represent Ross. I have Olive Shaler, Millville, Etna, Sharpsburg. And, what I've really prided myself on and being a state representative is my connection to my community groups and my municipalities. I've been very proud of partnering with Etna, Millville, and Sharpsburg as they did their first tri-borough eco districts, which were the first in the world, which was pretty incredible. And I've seen from the work that they've done that there's such synergy between the work that's happening at a community level around climate change and the need for adaptation, the work of the State House, and also an opportunity for the county to be more proactive when it comes to issues around sustainability, mitigating climate impacts, and working hand in hand with municipal leaders. In the State House, I have served on the Climate Change Advisory Committee for the last couple years. What that tasks me with is helping to create our climate action plan every 3 years for the entire state. And what we know about plans is that they don't do much unless you bring them out into the community and put them into action. So recently we partnered with Connect to do a 3-part series on, how to access resources so that we can make this state plan relevant to local municipalities, and municipal leaders and community groups can access funding that's available at the local, state, and even in the private space with different nonprofits and utility partners. So that's the kind of collaboration that I center in my style of governance. And, in Harrisburg, I've been able to be an effective lawmaker. I've been collaborative, I've been transparent, and I've even been able to work with Republicans to get bills across the finish line that are really transformative for the people who are back home. I was able to secure $125 million for the whole home repair program, because what I heard from as state representative, and even before that, when I was in the nonprofit space, is that there is a huge demand for home repair programs, and there's little resources for them, and there's little money for interagency cooperation and coordination between the private and public sectors with all the different programs. So we designed a program in concert with a bunch of different stakeholders and, building a statewide coalition that included a bunch of folks from different backgrounds. We were able to get that bill across the finish line. And we even got a shout out in the governor's budget address that happened last week. The other thing we've been working on in Harrisburg is, increasing funding for Keystone communities, and really strengthening employee ownership models, because we know that our main streets are, they would add to the quality of life and vibrancy in our communities. And, we as in the county could be such a stronger partner when it comes to helping to build up those main streets and support our local business owners that are right here. So really, taking that work at the State House, and that it's like theoretical, it's the long game. But when I look at the county, I see opportunity. I see this ability to take resources that we have today and direct them to some of our region's greatest challenges, which is, building up and diversifying our local economies, helping municipalities and our local governments adapt to climate change and increase our air quality, and really making sure that we are a place where everyone can thrive and share in the prosperity that we are trying to bring to this region. So that's a little bit about me, what I've been doing, and my vision for the county. And I look forward to hearing what your questions are.
Hey, any questions?
Well, maybe I have one. So what is your view on infrastructure challenges for Pittsburgh to be maybe a bit more climate change resilient? I mean, have you looked at that issue, and what does Pittsburgh need for that?
Well, in government, I think over the last, I believe that government can be a force for good. And that's why I got involved in running for public office originally. And what we're tasked with now as elected officials is decades of austerity and not investing in our people, places, and infrastructure. And this is something we deal with at the state level, because especially in Allegheny County, because we're working with infrastructure that is owned by a municipality, infrastructure that's owned by the state, infrastructure that's owned and maintained by the county. So this is where I think the COGS come in and as a vital piece in all of this, and just getting that intergovernmental cross-municipal collaboration in place. But we have to think creatively about how we are fundraising and how we're bringing dollars down to invest in our infrastructure, but also making sure that, we're building infrastructure that's going to be able to take on what climate change is going to throw at us in this region, which is increased rainfall that's more intense. So we need to be planning for that and replacing not just with what we had, but really thinking strategically and using all of our planning resources to think about how we're designing the infrastructure that's going to carry us into the future. So that's in hard infrastructure, but it's also thinking about how do we do more, deploy more regional strategies around stormwater management and leveraging green infrastructure. We have the Growing Greener grants through Alcosan, but there's an opportunity again to think more cross municipal lines and from a regional perspective. And that's where I'd really, lean on the COGS and local municipal leaders on deploying initiatives like that.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just one quick question. How would you better connect the county with the various COGS and municipalities? Is there an idea or task force or something you have in mind to maybe ease some of the barriers and the communication hurdles that we currently face?
Well, it needs to be a priority of the county exec's office. We need to invest in communicating with our municipalities, with our cogs. Really want to convene the leaders of the regional cogs and figure out what are the shared needs? What do we have? How do we leverage this infrastructure more efficiently in a way that engages residents, as well as municipal leaders, and doing, again, the more that we can do cross-municipal, cross-jurisdictional planning and investments, the further we're going to make our dollars go. So it's a vital piece. And I think, we don't need to create another agency. It's more about leveraging what we have at the moment and ensuring that we're using the convening power of the county exec's office to put everyone around the table, and figure out kind of what the needs are and how we invest in this, this vital people infrastructure that exists. I don't see a need to remake the wheel at this point, but just, leveraging the energy and expertise that already exists in our communities and our region.
Thanks.
What I am seeing is, because my son also lives in the city, he lives in East Liberty. And I'm watching the city grow. I mean, the city to me is the hub of all the little municipalities that surround it. Without Pittsburgh, I mean, it would be hard for us to exist. But one of the things with the growth of the city is connecting, I'm going to use connecting communities with transportation. I mean, the roadways are horrific. Just getting in and out of the city or to a community, or getting people that are moving people from one place to another, rather than, using public transportation, rather than having all these cars on the road.
Exactly.
And poor roads. I mean, that's a countywide and I think a statewide way to go. And you could connect even cities together very quickly. Trains, or, I'm seeing our transportation, our planes not doing well. Just that connection with, even with the city of Pittsburgh, with the surrounding communities, and being able to have something that connects even where we are into the city. Our main route into the city is Route 65.
Yeah.
Which we talked about earlier in this of really taking a look at it and making it safer for everyone.
Exactly.
But it is very frustrating. I mean, it's one of the few cities that to go around it, to get anywhere, roads and you're over cliffside. I love that about the city, but yet I understand the problems of that for the city.
Yeah. This is what you just talked about was the reason that I have asked to serve on the transportation committee at the state, and have been in my last 5 years in office for this very issue, because Pittsburgh Regional Transit, our public transit, is woefully inadequate for the needs of the people that exist around the county. And it's one of those things like chicken or the egg scenario. You always get this pushback in the public sector where it's like, or especially at the state, well, we need people to be riding the bus. It's like, well, no one's going to ride the bus if they have to wait an hour and they have to connect 3 times to get to their final destination. And in transit planning, there's a new style of thinking of, instead of like, how do we funnel people downtown, is like, how do we funnel people neighborhood to neighborhood? Because that's how people move now. And, looking at the future of the county, we need to adapt for the new style of work and the workforce that we have now and want to attract. When you have a lot of telework, you aren't having people who need to go downtown necessarily. So, but you do need people who can get to, so they can get to the grocery store, they can get to entertainment, or they can, kids can get to school, because, Pittsburgh public schools rely on public transit. So, that's definitely one of our major challenges. But what's great is that I have the endorsement of the mayor of Pittsburgh, Mayor Gainey, we want to work hand in hand on this issue of like, how do we move more people around the county? Because not only is it great for the quality of life of people here and the workforce that we're trying to keep and attract here. So it's a, an economic driver, but it's also helps us combat climate change because, well, our number one polluters are industrial sources. Our number two source of pollution in the county is transportation. So, looking at electrifying that fleet, but then also, how do we create more people-centered neighborhoods so people don't feel like they need to get in a single occupancy vehicle and drive to their final destination. So that has to have a multimodal and regional approach to that issue. And I'm near and dear to my heart, but also the way we think about development too, and how we're developing around transit lines, like your son who lives in East Liberty. There's a major bus line there, right? We have the thinking about how we're developing along routes and infrastructure that already exists.
Any other questions from anybody at the pub?
Just one question, we were talking about earlier, what we could do about plastics at the municipal level. So what are your ideas about what you would do at the county level to spare us all hundreds of municipal officials from individually dealing with it?
Yes, this is something that I've talked to a couple of folks about, is like, what would it look like instead of leaving recycling, like curbside recycling, to the individual municipalities? How do we actually take that on as a county? And that is something that I want to explore shortly after getting in office, is what would have to be in place? What would the costs be? What would the savings be? What does it look like? There's no reason, besides a lack of political will, why we couldn't take that issue on at a county level. And it's good, right? It's good it's good. We have to do it for the environment. Like overall, we have to reduce the amount of plastics we're using, which again, we can talk about kind of different policies that we could advocate for and put in place at a county level that sends a signal of like, we are here to reduce consumption, but at the end of the day, we need to be able to offer people an easy way to recycle their, all of their products. So not just plastic, but glass, cardboard, every other recyclable material. But, that's something that we can definitely take on at the county level and look at.
I'm sure that every one of the municipalities would absolutely love that. I wish you the best of luck with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's one of those things as a state rep, right? We do shred events. I'm sure you're all familiar with. You've been to a shred event at some point with your local state officials or senators. And, we've started to offer like drop off glass recycling just because that's a need we hear from our municipalities, is that they no longer can take it curbside, or they can't afford, they're getting one bid, right? It's normally from Waste Management, who will come and pick up to their curbside recycling. So, it's a major issue, and we need to adapt to that reality and look at how we're taking a more regional approach to these issues.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Anybody else with a question?
Yeah, this is Sabrina. Hi, Sarah. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So I guess maybe switching gears a little bit and thinking more so about workforce and Pittsburgh's focus on creating the city as a global health tech and life sciences hub. I mean, that's something that we're working on actively in Uptown. And I'm also seeing that it's not necessarily spillover, but I'm seeing that connection into Bellevue too, with the Alpha Lab Health being positioned at the old suburban hospital. So what are some of the thoughts, or what are some of the industries, maybe even if outside health tech and life sciences, that you're interested in bringing into the city and the county? And how do you plan to expand those and instill those into some of these key neighborhoods?
No, I appreciate that workforce question. I'm actually talking to a lot of employers who are already here in Pittsburgh and they can't hire enough people. And these are good paying jobs with benefits. So I think also as we're looking at what we want to attract to this region, we also need to switch our development lens on how we support and grow what is already here, and already providing jobs and a tax base for our county. So there's, so we need to bring together those folks and figure out really where the gaps are in that workforce. I think all of the industries that you talked about, from the life sciences to healthcare, these are really our opportunity for growth, because we have a lot of the infrastructure. We have the universities, we have the Alpha Labs and the Innovation Works. We have that investment from the state and the Ben Franklin Fund, and we haven't really brought a lot of those things to market here. We do a lot of the really great R&D, but then we don't get to benefit from when these products go to market. And so we have to convene tables to figure out what we're missing in that piece of bringing those technologies to our communities, and making sure we're building up that workforce. And, we have a really wonderful asset in the community college system that we have here. So, it's really leveraging CCAC in providing what kind of specialized upskilling would be needed in order to put people to work in the industries that we currently have here and want to grow here. And I think it's, working with folks like Uptown Partners and tapping into that work and saying, how do we be a part of that coalition as a energy and the infrastructure that's there, instead of creating a new.
Right. And I think that's kind of where I was getting at. There are some neighborhoods who are perfectly positioned. Oh, go ahead. I think we're both lagging.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was also going to say, we need a workforce program for the county. We have so many open positions at the county, and the county used to be a place where you could have, like, if you had a job at the county, you had a family sustaining job with great entitlements and quality department. So, what that means is that we can't hold people who violate their air quality permits accountable. It means that we don't have enough people to pick up 911 calls. So when we're thinking about this workforce problem, I also want the county to be there as as an employer, and saying, like, what are the skills and resources that we need to get the workforce that we're required, but then also how do we change a lot of our internal processes so they're modernized and can attract the workforce that can deliver a very user-friendly and accessible government.
Great, I appreciate that. And I think just one note is that I think one thing that I would like to see any county exec focus on is identification of key neighborhoods that have all the assets that some of these firms looking to move into neighborhoods. They're looking for neighborhoods with key anchor institutions like medical institutions, universities, entertainment, access to main streets, walkability, all those things. And we have neighborhoods like Uptown that have all of those things, including bus rapid transit. And we're still finding it hard to court industry that's looking for exactly the assets that we have. So I'd appreciate a county exec who knows what's happening in the city and the county and can help better market the neighborhoods that have exactly what some of these firms are looking for. I had one other question. It's about affordability, and your thoughts or plans for affordable home ownership, as opposed to just numerous amounts of affordable units, because we're seeing a good mix of that happen in the city right now, with over 1,300 units of housing coming in our Uptown pipeline right now. And that's great, because they all have a mix of affordability, because that's what we push for. But I think one of the things that's missing, because the equity component is missing, where you're talking about just rentable units, is the home ownership piece. So I have talked to people like Jason Tagano from Level Communities, who has a really strong program about how to do that. But how can we expand that on a wider level, so that in place, like, there's affordable, and affordable is probably not the right word, but housing that's accessible to people of various incomes in places like Shadyside or McKees Rocks and Bellevue and Uptown in the Hill District. Like, that has to be a wider conversation. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I think you touch on a great point too around like diversity of neighborhoods. The diverse neighborhoods are strong neighborhoods, are strong economy. And housing policy is really what I've focused on in Harrisburg. So we are thinking a lot about this, and we have this like missing middle. So we have resources to invest in moving folks who are unhoused into supportive housing. We obviously need more of it. And then we have, market rate development that's happening. But where we really need to be active as policymakers is in that space of what you're talking about is like, how do we create equity building opportunities for, folks who are wanting to like lay groundwork here. And, most of those happen to be young families. So I think Jason's program level is great. If we had a more, the TriCog land bank, I think is doing really well. But, we need to be able to expand those resources and, get a lot of our vacant properties back on the tax roll and work, there's an opportunity for the city or the county to partner with the city so that they can actually have a land bank that works and moves those properties into productive reuse. Also exploring, different types of development around cooperatives. So where you're, building dense housing, but instead of them being rentals, they're an opportunity to build that equity and have part ownership. So, that's another conversation we're having, especially around the downtown conversion dollars that we have and the other resources that are available for, quote, affordable housing. Like, how do we hit the people who are in the 80% to 150% area median income, because those are the folks who aren't able to really afford to own a home, but that's kind of where, the wages are at the moment. And I think for a long time, leaders in the political sphere, they got to lean on the fact that we were just like a naturally affordable region. And now we have to be far more intentional with our public policy and investment so that we can, move people into equity building opportunities and, create more attainable housing for the, the types of, for the needs that exist right now. And if you're just putting a bunch of affordable efficiencies online, you're not necessarily meeting the demand and the need of the community and the workforce that we're trying to attract.
Sarah, I'd like to say thank you very much for being part of our COG meeting. It has been very nice to meet you, to know who you are and what you stand for. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Take care, folks.
Bye.
You too.
Good night.
Okay. Moving on to the railroad. Is Amy here?
She should be.
I am.
Amy,
I just got to get myself off mute. Yeah. Yes, I am.
The railroad safety.
Yeah, so tomorrow night we are having a meeting with Glen Osborne, Glenfield, and Hayesville to specifically talk about kind of emergency planning related to the railroad. So we're kind of using the events at East Palestine as a launching board to address some of the concerns that we've talked about for years. But I think, the timing is very much right now, because hopefully we'll get more of an ear than we have had in the past. So our three communities are meeting on a Teams call tomorrow night to kind of discuss what our goals are related to the railroad and the emergency planning. The main focus is expected to be kind of, the emergency access points for especially Glen Osborne and Hayesville residents who at this point in time have one way in and one way out, which is blocked by the railroad. And of course, as we've discussed in previous COG meetings, we have had an issue with the train stopping right across the tracks for extended periods of time. So that part of that conversation and the objectives that we would expect to come will be, you know, how points of communication with Norfolk Southern, so that when that happens, like, who do we actually have to talk to? Who do we have to report this to? Additionally, when we have rail issues, when, you know, our residents who live along the track see something that doesn't look right, they call us as their council meeting, council members. And, you know, it's hard right now to get that information through to anybody, but we're hopeful that, you know, with the terrible accident that just happened, that maybe this is an opportunity to really establish an open line of communication. And, you know, we're hoping to establish some other, you know, short and long-term goals from the meeting that all three of our communities share. And then after this meeting and our establishing of our goals, Representative Gatos has already lended her kind of ear and support to this. So we're looking to talk to our local representatives to, you know, further gain support in our mission. So I think that pretty much sums up where we're at with it.
Yes, yes, very much. I think this is something that all three communities, because we live by the trains, we hear the trains and see the trains, especially with what happened in Ohio. It makes us a little more leery. And I know Glenn Osborne's emergency management plan official, it is, and we've talked to the Coast Guard, is by boat, because that's the only way we could get them out. And we're still limited by docks.
Yeah.
And I mean, the locks, and how far can you go? You can't go very far.
And part of that conversation for us is definitely for them to know who we are. So if something happens, they can reach out to us proactively and say, hey, you need to evacuate your neighborhood, or, you know, we have a train that, I don't know, tons of terrible scenarios that can arise from it. But essentially, so they have a way to contact us in cases of emergency so that we can communicate with our residents as well.
So the thing that we should maybe consider, something that I've been thinking about since this happened is, I'm like, okay, Killbuck Township has this small portion on, on the river, but so we have our emergency operation plan. But how much coordination do we have between all our municipalities? It's unlikely that it's only gonna touch one municipality, it's gonna touch many. And how well are we going to coordinate those things within all our different plans, which may or may not work well together? So maybe that's something we should think about to form one specifically for this type of incident related to transportation and maybe 65 or the train track.
Right, the emergency, I would think our emergency people from all those municipalities, it would be great to get them together in a round table.
As a first step, and they can, maybe help us decide what the next steps. Is this one person who has this special expertise for this type of chemical tragedy that would know what to do right away, and not someone trying to get up to speed at the last minute when this is happening? That might be very valuable.
Yeah, that's I agree completely.
If there's room on the meeting tomorrow, I'd love to join if you guys would have me, just to, help and
That'll be.
All the meetings this week, all the meetings.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have one every night this week. Yes, absolutely. I'll send it to you.
Perfect. Yeah. And as John Sebastian said, maybe we're working on getting a fire chiefs committee going, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a permanent thing, but just to have everyone in the same room to see each other and just familiarize each other with what their specialties and expertise is, I think would be valuable.
The coordinators,
Yes.
those people need to,
Where to go.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
as quickly the library you could go, and I don't know that.
And resources that are available to us. I mean, I just in talking with Glenfield, they're getting certain channels of information that we're not currently getting. So just that information exchange to say, hey, this is the resources we're using and this is where we get information. Those simple things can be very valuable as well.
It is true that the county would play a major role in this type of incident, so. But still, I mean, we should not be ignored and we should be kept in the loop, in that sense, that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Julie, did you want to add anything? I know that you mentioned your council president had some input on what we might be able to do as a cog with the railroad situation.
Yeah, so the Swiftly Council President, Cindy Mullins, she sent me an email a few weeks ago asking if the COG would take this up as a discussion item and consider writing a letter to our state and federal representatives voicing the concerns. And I talked to her today on the phone to see if she had any more detailed thoughts on it. She said that she thought it would be a good idea. And I agreed for us to basically put on the record that we are a cog that lines the Ohio River and that there's a railroad that lines our whole region or our whole area, and that we share concerns about railroad safety, and we would like to see not get specific about what we'd like to see, like more regulations or anything like that, but just to highlight that we do share this concern and to bring it to their attention. And
well, not only that, they used to, talking about it, if the train was carrying dangerous chemicals, they would let municipalities know when that train was coming by. Essentially,
It
that.
must be a daily thing now.
Oh, yeah.
those regulations got rolled back.
They
So
sure did.
those aren't
Yeah.
requirements anymore. And I also heard that these trains that derailed because the fire was so hot, they didn't even know what was in because the sign that would have the name of the chemical on the side just melted. And so they just had no idea what was in there. And if they would have been notified in advance, they would have had maybe a better response time or able to respond quicker because they would have known what was in there.
There's a lot of would-haves in my.
Most of those trains now, they all have some kind of hazardous materials. If you look those numbers up in that hazardous material, I mean, it's so common. I think almost every train has so many cars of some bad stuff in it, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's why conversations about speed limits, I mean, those are definitely things that are on our list because those are simple things that can be done in residential neighborhoods that we actually have and enforce a speed limit. It's, I agree. I think overreach, an overall letter expressing our concerns could be valuable, but I mean, long-term goal, again, for them to communicate with us as well. I mean, having a representative who's willing to come and talk to COG, twice a year and say, this is what we're doing. This is what's happening in your area. This is the type of chemicals that are coming through. This is what your emergency coordinators should know. I mean, that's the kind of information we need.
I like what you're saying, Amy. I think the letter should contain an ask,
Okay.
not just
Yeah.
a concern. It should be
Okay.
an ask and see where we get with that. See how we get to what the response looks like.
Is there any, I know this was brought up one other time when we were talking about the railroad, but there's no, I'm not that familiar with the area, but there's no physical way to get a connection between like Glenfield and Hayesville. Is it, there can't be a road to hook into there some way?
The road would have to run between the railroad tracks, which is part of the conversation. So there's no between where the railroad that's closest to the Hayesville Glenfield properties, there's several parts along it where the river is close enough that you couldn't actually fit a
Oh,
vehicle.
I see.
So to be able to get down to Glenfield, there is the opportunity to kind of drive across that first track and drive down the center, which railroad vehicles frequently do. But again, it needs to be an established path and an established means of exit in emergency situations.
Thank you.
We need to make a motion for that letter to be.
I'll entertain a motion for the letter to be drawn up.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the QVCOG send a letter to our region, state and federal representatives regarding railroad safety.
Can I put a little, sorry, I'm skipping. I'll wait till we're till discussion.
Amy, maybe you should second that.
Okay, I will second
Okay, now we're in discussion.
it. I was just gonna say, could we maybe consider pausing that just until maybe we have this initial meeting between the three municipalities that are kind of on the other side of the tracks, literally on the other side of the tracks, just so that maybe we could clarify what some of the talking points or discussion points for the letter might be, because I just suspect there will be some things that might come up as part of our discussion that would be worth considering as part of the letter.
And
I never
think it
want to
should be
pause
consistent.
progress, but
It's tomorrow night.
But I mean, the motion is not addressing the.
I guess
Mhm.
not a time frame. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think the letter contains anything yet. I think it's just a motion that we all agree to have one draft in the near
Right.
future.
yeah,
Okay, that works for me.
okay.
And I'll obviously bring the letter to you guys next month, and maybe we'll have a final vote to make sure that everyone's points are addressed, and then we'll send it after that.
And right, and what the acts will be.
Yeah. I mean, I do know how devastating that train accident is, because farmers have fields that have died, there are streams that have fish that have died. They can't even start their truck farming over there. People's houses are worth nothing. I mean, it's a very devastating impact over there, and we've all thought about it happening here, which would be 100 times more devastating to this area, just by the people that are here.
And it's the perception that this event happened, that sometimes, oh, this place might, that is also.
Well, yes, and I guess I know a little bit more about the makeup of the trains and the people, that Norfolk Southern let a lot of people go, and never hired people to watch the tracks to make sure those safety things are working. Instead of 60, they have 3, so there's no way. So just saying that this could happen, and I think every municipality should have a plan together, because we're gonna have to be together to get people out, to get roads open, and to know exactly where to go. And
Yeah,
what
but
to do.
they evacuated, what, a mile each way or something? I mean, that would be,
Yeah,
yeah,
That'd be all of us.
I mean,
Yeah, it would.
Yeah,
maybe
It
they
would
need
be
to be
all.
ready with helicopters. I mean, who knows? If
Right.
that's what it takes, that's what
Yeah.
it takes, right?
yeah,
And the letter, I think a letter coming from all of us is, I think it puts a different kind of pressure. I mean, I don't want to say pressure, but it's more impactful to the, Sewickley representatives just met with representatives today at our wastewater treatment plant from, staffers, from Senator Casey and Senator Fetterman's office. And we asked them today about the train derailment. And they said that there were resources listed on the website. So, I mean, to me, I wouldn't expect them to be prepared to like say what all the exact resources are in our conversation. But I think if they get a letter from us and they see, oh, all of these local officials have been talking about it together, then it's just like maybe a different level of, it takes it to a different level of concern for them too.
I think Amy's point, and Julie's point, with the ultimate goal being someone from Norfolk Southern coming and speaking to you all, and being able then to distribute that information to your residents and your council members. That's a huge goal, right?
Mhm.
I can reach out to them until I'm blue in the face. It's not gonna happen, but if we reach out to our elected representatives,
Mhm.
they can put the pressure on that organization to bring someone to us.
Mhm.
So I think the letter is a great idea to get that goal to come to fruition. Because as you all know, the three municipalities have been trying to reach out to their organization and nothing's come of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
maybe us together, working with the higher ups, something can happen.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we have our motion.
okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. You wanna do roll call discussion?
Just last thing, we sort of already mentioned it, but I wanted to show you the letter. We voted on it last month to, write a letter to the county. That was the last, item for old business. This is the letter that never was. But, yeah,
Did
So-
we vote on sending it? So do we need to have another motion not to send this or just it's so it was one? I'm not sure.
we got the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
gonna. send it.
We don't need to, I don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
Okay, so roll call for last comments. Let's start with, Carmi, if you're still on, if you wanted to have anything, for Bell Acres. I know she mentioned she might have to leave early, so I'm not sure if she's still on. Sabrina, anything in Bellevue?
Yes. So actually, I was going to mention the train concerns, but I just want to put it on record that Bellevue residents are extremely concerned, despite the fact that, we may not be as close, but it's affecting us. This is a small area. It's going to affect us, I think, significantly as well. And so Bellevue residents have reached out, to see like what we plan to do. So I'm glad we have this conversation today, but I just wanted to make note of that. Patrick, I think it was like maybe early last year when I first took office, when I had attempted to connect you with Chris Sandvig, the director of Mobilify, who was working on the Manchester project, of 65. So I think now that we've gotten into it, I think there's a little bit more understanding of what that greater work is, that would be a good opportunity to now actually forge that connection, to at least start the conversation, get some ideas from him, how they accomplished getting that funding. And I think this is the best time to start. This could be a really great opportunity to start having those conversations with someone who's been involved with it, and has been successful achieving funding, because we're even trying to work on this stuff. I think I had mentioned to you all the way down to even on Boulevard of the Allies. So a lot of communities are trying to have these discussions on how to slow down these untrue boulevards. And so I think now is a good opportunity to maybe have that conversation with him. So I want to throw that out there. And then lastly, this is just something that I keep experiencing, and this goes back to the infrastructure. I wanted to revisit power outages and how often that they happen in Bellevue. I think we have one at least once a week, whether it's a short one, whether it lasts an hour, whether it lasts a couple hours, whether it's a flicker. I'm not sure what the cause of that is. But I think that the frequency that it happens, I've never experienced until I moved to Pennsylvania 6 years ago. So perhaps it's just, I don't know, but I just wanted to have a conversation or see if any other of the municipalities are experiencing that.
Okay, we are.
Yeah.
Sewickley, Ward 1 just had we have had so many outages in Ward 1. And in fact, we had one on Christmas Eve. People had to leave. I did not spend Christmas Eve at my house. It was, people lost pets. People had frozen pipes and people had to leave their homes and get like complete renovations of the interior of their homes because of floods. So,
What caused it, Julie? Was it a storm or something?
well, yes, that one was when it went down to like -30 degrees that night. But I think for Sewickley, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because there's just a small little section that has had so many power outages. So what we just did was we did like a neighborhood campaign, letter writing campaign. We collected 66 letters. My husband made this Google form where people could submit their history of power outages, and we got like over 160 submissions to this form.
Wow.
And then the borough, and one of the council people wrote a letter, and the borough sent it like on behalf of the residents to Duquesne Light Company. Duquesne Light sent 3 representatives to one of our meetings to talk with residents about it. They promised to look for the root cause and then present us with some solutions.
Mhm.
They came back after a few weeks and they said that they thought it was from trees coming down in this like highly tree canopy area that's actually in Aleppo. But was affecting Sewickley residents. And they said that they were gonna like put in new infrastructure for us and that they were gonna complete it by March.
Whoa.
It was like amazing, the response actually. So I don't know, Sabrina, but I think that what happened, like what made it effective was that we got like all the neighbors to pull together
Mm.
to reach out to them, and they took it pretty seriously.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah,
I know.
maybe, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just say maybe, if there's a campaign in the borough to have, you know, when an outage occurs, have them call the administrative office and they can keep like a log of it. You know what I mean? And then send that log to Duquesne Light showing, you know.
Yes, because here's something that sounds impossible to believe.
Yeah.
Duquesne Lights claimed that they do not keep house level data. So they do not know when outages happen at the house level. So they were actually asking us for that information. And
Well,
we
they
were
have,
trying.
you know what, that's not right. They have a whole, I went to their main office down there, and they have a whole big grid. They have every house, I mean, if you call them,
How many
they
times?
have all that, they have all that.
They keep track if you call, but like, if you know your neighbor has already called, so you don't call, that your house it's not recorded that your house had an outage.
Yeah.
It's
we
only
have
the
that
person
after
who
the second
calls.
one. Yeah.
That's what they told us. I don't know. I mean, that does sound
Yeah.
like in this day and age, that sounds impossible.
No, but
Yeah,
that is.
I don't buy that.
But
Well, what I was going to say is I think that and maybe this is a little bit preposterous, but excuse me, when we're talking about infrastructure, how vulnerable we are, how little access, you know, some of the boroughs have, if there were to be a situation where we have something serious happen, like a train derailment that affects all of our municipalities, and then we have, and that's compounded with a power outage or something like that, all of our infrastructure situations happening, it would truly be catastrophic. And so while I think all of our boroughs are quaint, they're easy to talk about, it just takes a freak accident to happen, and then we're in a real bind. So I think as we talk about, you know, the railroads and, you know, infrastructure, and I think this is it's becoming clear that some of our systems are failing or could use some updating. And it sounds like a movie plot, but then we think about the fact that it actually could really happen.
I think it's a maintenance issue. I think that
Yeah.
our fire department, seems like the report we have every month is like they cut down trees. I mean, that's what they do, like what is happening, and it's always related to tree and power line. And so maybe it's just a maintenance thing, that there's a better program to make sure that those are free of dangerous trees falling on them.
Well, you know, they had a program a long time ago. I've lived up off of Camp Meeting Road for 45 years. And when we first moved up here, our power went out all the time. It was just like she's saying in Bellevue. It was out all the time. And then there were meetings held, and Duquesne Light said they were going to put in this, I think I might not be using the right word, but it was a redundant system. So if a branch comes down, the power's going both ways. You know, when a branch used to come down, it stopped. That was it. But now the power goes both ways. And we notice sometimes we'll have a flicker for a couple seconds here, and then it comes back on. And because they put this redundant system, and they were supposed to borrow all this money a long time ago, because it was in the papers. If you went back 30 some years, they were going to upgrade the whole at Beaver County, and maybe they ran out of money, Allegheny County. and do all this redundant system, but it doesn't sound like you have that now everywhere.
I think that's what they created in Swiftly,
Yeah,
was a redundancy, yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Shouldn't I have-
Any other comments, Sabrina, for Bellevue?
Nope, that's all. Thank you. Thank you all.
Mm-hmm. Tavia, anything in Ben Haven?
I don't have anything from the borough in particular, but I will say that I'm not sure if we've had any complaints that I've heard of, but just personally, at my house, we have a lot of outages. And I'm not sure why either. I mean, a lot of times they're just a minute long and then it comes back on, but that is pretty common here. I'm not sure. Also, I'm glad that we are looking into the issues with the railroad and being more prepared for that. The railroad's in my backyard, so after what happened in East Palestine, I'm particularly concerned, that something could happen here. So that's really all I have.
Great. Barbara, anything in Glen Osborne?
No, well, we are working on the railroad safety, we're part of that. And of course, we're concerned about that. We also had an accident on the boulevard because the PennDOT crosswalk was installed. And a little boy got hit using the crosswalk, crossing that road. It's a dangerous road. It still remains a dangerous intersection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amy, anything in Hayesville, other than, did you want to bring up, the Red Gate Road discussion from yesterday?
Yep, yeah, Barbara prompted it well for me. So yesterday, we had a meeting, so it was Swickley, Hayesville, and Aleppo, and Glen Osborne from from a distance, but they were definitely involved. We had a meeting with PennDOT. So specifically, I guess, two branches of PennDOT, the actual traffic control regulation and safety folks, and then also the construction folks. So I've talked many times on these meetings about the issues we've had over the past couple of years, but really in the last year with large semi trucks coming down Red Gate and then on to River Road. So for those of you who aren't super familiar with it, it is a very, very steep hill with several houses and a single yield bridge right at the bottom of the very steep hill. So tractor trailers shouldn't be going down the road, but unfortunately, by the time they see the signage, it's too late for them to turn around or back up. And with the closures on 79 and the detours, we've had a lot of drivers get confused and take that route to try to take a shortcut to 65. We've had several lose their brakes on the way down the hill. A couple of tractor trailers turn over. Luckily, we've had the bridge hit there multiple times. Damage to cars along River Road, just kind of a long string of incidences. So we've been contacting PennDOT, we've been contacting them. Finally, we got a meeting with them, met yesterday afternoon at 1. And we actually drove them down to the bottom of the hill and kind of made them stand there and look up at the hill as traffic was coming down, and discussed what what our fears were in terms of a tractor trailer losing their brakes and slamming into the houses at the bottom of the hill. We had great representation overall. The state police were there, Ohio Township Police, and the Swickley Police as well. So after hour or so meeting with them, they're going to kind of take a twofold approach. Some immediate actions are that we're going to get some additional signage. So they're very, very highly regulated in what signs that they can use, what signs they can put up. But they explained that they have a little more liberties that they can take when construction is happening. And that construction on 79 is slated for another 2 years. So they're going to take, during that 2-year period, they're going to put up some additional signs that let drivers know coming up that hill towards the Aleppo Municipal Building and the Amazon warehouse that there is, a steep hill to the left, some more warnings saying, no steep incline, no trucks, that type of signage with some different colors, some different patterns, maybe to try catching their eyes a little bit more. Long-term solutions, PennDOT has started working for the first time, they said, with the major GPS providers. So they're actually providing them information about what the weight restrictions are on different roads. So, the big issue for the truck that we had flip over a couple of months ago that was full of milk, the driver, he kept saying, I was just following my GPS. I'm just following my GPS. I mean, we can sympathize. It's a terrible, terrible place for them to be at as well. So being able to put those weight limits and the cautions when a driver's trying to look at their GPS that say, do not go this route if you're over, this weight, or if you're this type of vehicle, that definitely is our long-term solution. And then additional studies of the road to maybe be able to redesignate it as a different classification. One of the most important things I will say that came out of the meeting for me is that the gentleman who's in charge of the regular traffic control and signage, he said that they did a study on the road and then they really hadn't heard too much, so they thought everything was okay. Which, I mean, was crazy to me because we've had just one thing after another. But we realized that, those aren't all being filed with PennDOT. So he basically said, we want to hear whatever's happening, let us know, because we thought everything was okay because we hadn't heard anything. So that was, from my seat, that was really interesting because, it's such a paradox of different information. But I was really glad to hear them say that. And I do think we came out of the meeting with some, improvements and potential solutions that we're really hopeful will improve the safety on that road.
Yeah, that was the first time I had a chance to go up and down the road, and I think that should be Kennywood's missing ride. It's quite an impressive.
Yes. I knew having them stand at the bottom of that hill would be probably the most effective thing we could do. And I joked I was going to hire somebody to drive a truck down the hill while we were standing there. We didn't do that, but they did have a lot of traffic. And I think they realized very clearly what we were trying to emphasize.
Great. Any other topics in Hayesville?
Nope, that's it for us.
John Sebastian, what's new in Killbuck?
New in Killbuck, I think this year, as you're aware, we're gonna spend the most money on catch basins. I mean, every year we think about what infrastructure project we're gonna be working on, and I think this year, realizing that some of the catch basins weren't big enough, given there's more rain, it's just not really effective. So this is part of our round of projects this year, is the focus on catch basin and water management on the roads. But yeah, that's pretty much it for us.
Very good. Marty, what's new in Leet?
About the only thing update some of the Quaker Valley communities would like to know. We had a initial kickoff meeting with the Quaker Valley High School district people involved in that project, and they wanted to meet, and we thought they were ready to submit some application, and they're not nearly ready enough to do anything. So they probably won't submit something till August, 6 months or after that. So I think it's just going to sit there for a long time until they're ready to go.
Wow.
Great. What's doing Swickley, Joy?
Something I hadn't mentioned in the past, because council was still trying to come to a decision on it, but Sewickley had considered taking the flow of their wastewater treatment plant to the Leedsdale, down to the Leedsdale plant. And Sewickley has Glenn Osborne, Hayesville and Aleppo as customers. And we did an analysis of last year. When we got our new council in place, we hired an engineering firm to do an analysis of and compare the two options. And. Oh, hi.
Sorry.
It became clear that we wanted to stay in Sewickley and upgrade our plant because the cost to do that was really no different. And then the secondary consideration was that a lot of wastewater treatment plants in Pennsylvania are getting purchased by private companies. And then they just have all those ratepayers as captive customers, and they hike up the rates. They guarantee the rates for a few years, and then they can do whatever they want with the rates. So anyways, we had a meeting with people from like officials and lawyers and engineers from Aleppo and Glen Osborne and Hayesville, and it went really well. Like, we really want to work together and be open about what we're doing. And then last night, our council did move forward with a vote to move forward with the Sewickley plan. So
Nice.
that's all. And that's
Yeah,
why we have the reps there today, because we're seeking funding for the improvements that we're trying to make. So,
Yeah, I will say that was a great meeting. It was really informative and we were very grateful for it.
thank you.
All right.
Goes to a lot.
Anybody,
He's there.
Anybody else have any input or feedback before we close up shop?
Hey, if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Okay.
Well, all right, guys. Thanks, everybody. We'll
Good night, everybody.
next month.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.